Well, hello and welcome to today's event. This is a Globish event from the local Climate Adaptive Living Facility on learning and advancing action on devolved decision-making and understanding climate risk. Just to remind you, the Globish conference focuses on knowledge sharing and practical experiences around the 8 principles for locally led adaptation. At today's event, we'll be focusing on 2 of those principles. Principle 1, devolving decision-making to the lowest appropriate level, and Principle 5, building a robust understanding of climate risk and uncertainty. And who better to guide us and share experience and impact using the local approach than UNCDF colleagues and local government representatives from the Gambia and Mozambique. Joining us today from the Gambia, we have Landing Senna, who is the chairman or mayor of Mansakonko Area Council and also president of the Gambian Association of Local Government Authorities. Landing will give us a detailed look on how Local is devolving decision-making in the Gambia. We'll also be hearing from Ramon Severa, who is implementing local activities in Mozambique, and Rosario Matavelli, the representative of the Provincial Service of Economy and Finance in Inhambane province in Mozambique. They'll be looking at local activities and impacts on the ground, focusing in particular on results around Principle 5, building a robust understanding of climate risk and uncertainty. Thank you, speakers, for joining us today. But before we launch into the discussion, I think it's probably appropriate that I give a bit of background about the local Climate Adaptive Living Facility. Local is a mechanism for channeling climate finance to local governments and communities for locally led adaptation to the impacts of climate change. Designed by UN Capital Development Fund over 10 years ago, Local is today being implemented or designed for implementation in 34 countries across Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, and Pacific. To date, Local has mobilized almost $150 million for adaptation and resilience building, with over 15 million people benefiting from those funds. To give you a clearer idea of Local and what Local does and how Local works, we've got a short video. So perhaps if we could play that now before we launch into the discussion. Climate change is hitting the poorest communities hardest. Local action demands systemic change and sustained finance. The local Climate Adaptive Living Facility, hosted by UNCDF, bridges this finance gap. Local is a flexible mechanism that drives finance to the local government level, empowering communities for locally led climate adaptation. Launched in Cambodia and Bhutan in 2011, Local is now a global mechanism. A growing number of countries have joined as Local partners. Others are consolidating their country mechanisms, launching them, or designing initiatives. Local works because it is a mechanism that is embedded in country systems, can be adapted to meet local needs, but with standardized quality assurance and monitoring. To date, Local has mobilized over $130 million and counting. Working with subnational government in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean and Pacific for locally led climate adaptation. LOCAL is owned by the countries that sign up to the mechanism. The LOCAL board is made up of representatives from participating countries that are among the world's most vulnerable to climate change. Our local ambassadors know that LOCAL works.
Moçambique é testemunho de que este é mecanismo que funciona, direcionado para as comunidades, com impacto direto na vida das famílias moçambicanas. Daí a necessidade de países iguais com vulnerabilidades climáticas como a de Moçambique.
In Mozambique, communities are identifying what they need and driving action.
A comunidade é que sabe tudo o que eles precisam.
LOCAL actions are as varied as the communities where they're being implemented. No two projects are identical, just as no two villages are the same. So, in Niger, communities have identified activities to address water shortages, drought, and changing rainfall patterns. In Benin, communities are engaged in irrigation improvements and investment in vegetable gardens. In Bangladesh, ponds are being excavated to serve the water needs of marginalised and landless communities. In the mountainous region of Bhutan, where climate change impacts vary from valley to valley, village to village, LOCAL actions include irrigation, landslide prevention, flood adaptation, and more. LOCAL empowers local governments in developing and least developed countries to take decisive action, benefiting millions of the world's most vulnerable people. LOCAL, financing locally led adaptation. Great. I mean, I think that video gives a pretty good overview of what LOCAL's doing across the globe. I mean, we are just focusing just on Gambia and Mozambique today, but maybe just a couple of updates about recent developments with LOCAL. The LOCAL experience has been used to develop an ISO certification, ISO 14093. I think that helps to really understand that LOCAL is a really standard approach for channeling finance to community level. And also there is the recent LDC 5. I don't know if you're aware, but LOCAL is named as a target, a function that is available for LDCs to help them to achieve their own ambitions laid out in the Doha Programme of Action. So it's quite appropriate that we're speaking to two representatives from two LDCs today. We'll go first to Landing, who's joining us from the Gambia. Hi there, Landing. It'd be great if we could start with you and maybe look more closely at how the LOCAL approach really devolves decision-making to the ground, to the community level, or as low as is appropriate for each country. You're a representative of a local government yourself. I wondered if you could start by telling us what's your experience of working with the LOCAL approach?
Thank you very much, Sarah. And thank you, of course, my colleague, Ramon, and all the participants in this panel. Like she introduced me, I am Landin B. Sane, chairman, or if you like, mayor of Mansakonko local government area, but also the president of local government authorities of the Gambia. The way to start with the question directly, how LOCAL devolved in the Gambia, I will have to give you first probably an introduction or an overview of how the Gambia decentralization system is. just a brief summary of how it looks like. In the Gambia, we have like 3 layers, if you like 4. Apart from our line ministry, at the decentralized level, we have the local government authority. That's where I am seated. And that is where you have the mayor or you have the chairman. And below you have the ward development committees. The ward development committees are at the middle level, at a lower level than the local government authority itself. Then below the local government authority, you have the village development committees. The village development committees are the lowest structure at the level of the communities that manage community projects or interventions. And that also make decisions on behalf of the communities. Now, if you look at these 3 layers, these form part of the decentralization or the decentralized arrangement or framework in the country. So all these 3 have responsibilities as far as the local is concerned. I know, like you introduced, Sarah introduced, local operates basically at the level of the local government. And at the local government level also, it operates mainly at the level of the grassroots. And this is where you have the community itself being participating and represented. Now, if you look at the structures, like I said, the Ward Development Committee is comprised of all the villages within that ward. The villages will each select 2 participants to serve in the ward committee. The Village Development Committee also is a representation of people from the different, in our context, we call it Kabilo. Kabilo means sub-ward. Village, in the village setting, you have, they divide into, let's say, compounds or so. So each of these will select 2, a male and a female, to represent them in the VDC. And the same thing applies at the ward committee level. You have a representation of male and female from each village. So
Oh, we seem to have a connectivity issue there with Landing. Let's just give him a moment to reconnect. I do see that Nanya Darbo has managed to join, also from the Gambia. I'm not sure if she's able to hear us. Nanya, feel free to take yourself off mute if you can. We seem to have lost.
Hi, Sarah.
Nanya, hello there.
We have connectivity issues in the Gambia, so I had lost you there. You had frozen on my screen, but I can hear you now. How are you?
I'm very well. It's great that you're able to join. Nanya Darbo is the UNCDF representative in the Gambia, and she's implementing the jobs, skills, and finance for women and youth in the Gambia project. It's been running, what now, for 4 years, Nanya? And yes, coming to its final stages of this iteration. And it's through this JSF program that the local mechanism has been implemented in the Gambia. Perhaps, Nanya, as we've now lost Landing, would you mind perhaps stepping in? Perhaps you could give us a bit of an overview about how Local works in the Gambia and why it's able to deliver results, why it works in the context of the Gambian context.
Thank you, Sarah. I think Landing started out by explaining how it works at the local level. So I'll probably just explain how does it get to the local level. And we work with the Ministry of Local Government, where the grants are being channeled through, and through an intergovernment transfer, they channel it down to the local level. working with the ward development committees and the village development committees, as Landing has explained. I think for the Gambia, the beauty about local is the framework of local, especially the menu of investments of the mechanism, allows the communities the freedom to choose projects that are very much needed to take climate action and implement. And for the Gambia, the mechanism also was customized in such a way that it would create temporary jobs for the communities, focusing on women and youth. So in short, the mechanism, apart from building climate resilience, addressing, acting on climate action, what it does is, for us, it creates wealth within the communities, because these grants are channeled to the communities and allows them to spend it within their communities. So we've had few, impacts where beneficiaries of these temporary jobs through Cash for Work program are able to set up their own businesses. They're able to hire more people within their communities. So I think overall, the mechanism for Gambia doesn't only address climate needs, but also helping address poverty, capacity building challenges that the country face. Thank you, and over to you.
Yeah, so it really does fit the Gambian context. I mean, perhaps you could tell me a bit more, for those who aren't familiar with these menu of investments. I mean, what might you see? What might one see on this menu, and how do you get that? How do you pull that menu together? How is that drafted, Nanya?
So many of investment is options like climate-related sort of areas that the communities can choose from, whether it is health or whether it is deforestation, or whether it is water. So that's what we are referring to, the health menu of investments. So the communities, or whether it's infrastructure. So the communities are giving the freedom. So for example, in Gambia, the Bureng ward, for example, where they face these challenges during the rainy seasons of not being able to move around between villages. Through this menu of investment, they were able to identify the need to sort of build a small bridge that would allow access between villages. So the menu of investment is just, options giving to the communities, but for them to choose exactly what their needs are.
So that's a form of empowerment. And how do you ensure that all the community is able to have a say in what's on this menu of investments?
So we work at the ward level. So there's a formulation of a committee, and this committee comprises of 75% youth and women in representation, and others as well. So this committee is sort of responsible for managing and utilizing these grants that goes to them. So they meet as a committee and they discuss as a committee what are their problems, what are their challenges that they face that's related to climate. And then they would be guided. We come in from the local facility and support them in their planning process, making sure that projects that they identify aligns with the standard of the mechanism.
I mean, you've been in operation now in Gambia for just over 4 years. I mean, is there a particular highlight that you've seen in terms of impact and results in the country?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I think let's start with results first. I think results, what the minimum conditions of the mechanism, which is part of the standard of the mechanism, has done in the country is enhanced and improved governance. It also has strengthened the relationship between central government and local government. I can see Landing is back up. Before the mechanism, central government and local government would have challenges on land transfer or availabilities of land. But through the mechanism, we've seen that's not a problem. And I think these results, what they have done is they have really driven the sort of ownership at the country level, both at national and local. They see the mechanism as theirs, not as the facilities or as UNCDF that are the host of the facility. And in terms of impact, like I said, we have the story of Gideon Sabali, for example. When I met Gideon 2 years ago, the first thing he said to me was, "I never thought I could make it from my own village." Those are very powerful words. And I said, "Why?" She said, we've never been brought jobs to our villages. We would always go out and find jobs. Projects that we used to get in our villages were kind of imposed, and they will just come and happen. People from the urban will come and do it, but these projects, we are doing it for ourselves. We are part of the process, selecting who should do it within our communities. And he was able to also have access to skills development, and he was able to then set up his own poultry farm. And in that farm now, poultry farm, he's recruiting 10 people within his own village. And those are impacts that, you have few of them, not many, but, it's a testimonial that, the mechanism is it can be very impactful, depending on, the country use and ownership and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Great. I mean, like you say, we've got Landing back here now.
Yes.
Let's just see if he's able to open up his microphone. Maybe he can take this a bit further and we can explore a bit more some of the impacts that he's seeing in his community. Landing, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I am following up and I'm hearing you loud and clear. It's indeed, I'm just going to start from where Nyanya stopped and maybe just have a reflection on the decision-making process. I just round up on that. The decision-making process, as far as local governance is concerned, is such that now this project has taken us to another level. Maybe practically, or you have some success stories, and in the long run will benefit not only the direct beneficiaries of the project alone, but even the councils. Because I can tell you for certain, as we launched this project some few years ago, it has been a turning point in the local government administration, because decision making has been dropped down to the community level for communities to take decision on their own, on what their priorities are, on how to go about it. It will interest you to note that not only the financial or the economic gains that the beneficiaries are getting from the cash for work or the skills, but it is also putting in added motivation in the local communities, just like she mentioned, somebody trying to now believe that I can make it at home. I can stay in my community and I can utilize my own skills and work and get something for myself and for my family. Because you will know that even after the project cycle is done, some of the beneficiaries have been introduced to skills that are life skills that will stay with them and that they can utilize at either their household levels or even for commercial purposes. So the benefits of the project is far-reaching. And at the level of the local government, just less than a week ago, we were having general council meeting. My vice chairman was reporting, and he was even elaborating on the financial management, talking about bookkeeping. And this project, this is how far the project has gone into even introducing the councillors to they properly keep their books, so that when auditors, sometimes you might not count them, but they are big successes. Because you imagine you're not even taking care of records. Now, as we go on regular checks and balances, and all those things. So these are, landmarks, and they are milestones that me as an authority would never want to overlook, because it's a systematic capacity building process. I think add that what is being said.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because as well as the beneficiaries, the communities, the people who live in these in the villages where you're working, there's also the benefits that are accrued by the local authorities and the wards themselves. Like you're saying, the skills development that they get through working with the locale approach. Right. And I think we've talked about this in the past, Landing. You said that by working with locale, the local authorities get their skills improved, and they're seen then by other potential partners as a can-do organization, or as a can-do operational part of the local government structure, rather than just something that's perhaps maybe even a hindrance. So it kind of turns around perceptions of who your partner is and who can actually deliver results. I don't know if you have anything more to say about that.
Yeah. In fact, thank you for that reminder. The local mechanism also has broken some barriers, but it has gone further to demystify some of the misconceptions of some local partners, including, of course, government. That limited confidence in the local government authorities, that you can go through them, work with the local government authorities to realize your project objectives. There is too much of misconception that, local government authorities, they do not have capacity. If you work with them, you might not achieve but the local mechanism has proven that very wrong. That when you go through the local government authorities, in fact, you will succeed, and will succeed, better, because there and then you will work through a mechanism or through a structure that will forever be there. Because even after the project cycle, the local government structures will still remain, and they will now be there responsible to sustain and maintain the gains of the project. So the local mechanism has now also given us to other players. You will be surprised, even at the level of the government, now there is a lot of conversation around copying the local approach, so that some of the interventions of even government take the local approach to benefit the communities. Likewise, other development partners are trying to follow suit. So I think the benefits cannot be overemphasized. It goes a long way. And for us working at the local government level, it has helped us in building trust and confidence with partners that the best way to benefit the local or the grassroots people is going through their own structures and utilizing them maximally to the benefit of the communities.
Terrific. I think that seems like a good place maybe to stop now and move on to Mozambique. Mozambique's slightly different situation, and perhaps a better example of implementing Principle 5, which was the understanding climate risk and preparing for climate shocks, ultimately. I mean, Mozambique has suffered a number of very devastating tropical cyclones in recent years. We've all seen the terrible pictures coming out of the country. Ramon, you're heading up UNCDF operations and implementing locale in Mozambique. Perhaps you could give us an overview on the work that's being done and what's really being achieved.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you very much, Landing, Nyana. I'm just going to be complementing what Nyana and especially Landing have just said. But first of all, I would like to just give credit to our donors in Mozambique because they are the ones that have been believing in the mechanism of local and contextualizing the idea to the country's circumstances. So just for the colleagues to to get the size and the dimensions and magnitude of the local development initiative in Mozambique, we are above 60 million US dollars mobilized and committed by our donors in Mozambique, and especially thanks to the Belgian Development Corporation, which was the one that really believed and started to support the initiative back in 2014. So the Belgian Corporation is a very important donor. The Swedish Development Agency is another one. The Switzerland Embassy and its delegation, together with the European Union delegation in Mozambique, and together with the Catalan Agency for Development Cooperation, have been the ones that are currently supporting with financial resources the local development initiative. So how do we contextualize local in Mozambique? So basically, we take into consideration the two basic development principles, which is mitigation and adaptation. So basically the initiative, the methodology, the development angle and approach focus on adaptation, but has a meeting point with mitigation. We are looking at water conservation, new energy systems, education, urban forest. We are meeting in adaptation, the adaptation and mitigation interface, and that's where we are trying to focus our development interventions and resources. So when we are talking about local, in particular, when we are talking to someone who has never heard about local and said, oh, okay, what is exactly local? So we are talking about a mechanism, we are talking about a development angle, a development finance angle, we are talking about a method to decentralize financial resources to enhance adaptation at the local level. How do we do that? We do that through the local governments, basically. So that's why we call it locally led adaptation. What do we mean by locally led adaptation? So it means that local governments are in the front line of the planning and budgeting process, are on the front line and leading the dialogue with local communities for the selection of development finance adaptation that is going to be channeled through its own government systems. We are looking at the human resource and in particular decentralized human resource structure of local governments that are going to be the ones managing, implementing, and being accountable to all local development finance adaptation that is going to be supported through the local development initiative. That's very important because as Landing has already said, ownership is crucial. When we are talking on ownership, it's at all levels, not only at the local government level. It has to be embraced by multiple governance layers and different institutional entry points. What do we mean by that? We are basically working with the Minister of Economy and Finance and the Minister of Land and Environment, but we are also working with decentralized governance structures at the provincial level. We are working with the Provincial Service of Economy and Finance, with the Provincial Service of Environment, who are supporting local governments in the front line of planning, budgeting, and financing adaptation. So how do we, I'm just trying to get advanced to the question that Sarah, we just have asked to Nania. How do you ensure that local communities do have a say in the planning for adaptation? So basically, that's quite a simple, straightforward answer in the case of Mozambique, because we are contextualizing the local development initiative within the existing national public policies or development strategies that are going to be supporting local development. So these public policies and existing local legislation suggest that all local communities must be consulted in all what it entails socioeconomic development within the territory of the districts. What do we mean by that? It means that local governments have to have a dialogue with local communities, have to be a constructive, inclusive, prioritization exercise with local communities. So local communities, it's basically represented by women and men through a local consultative council. So we have these very important entities that we have to use and we are making use to the fullest, which is local government, and local consultative councils. So we have this dialogue platform between communities and local governments in terms of prioritization. So how do we prioritize? Well, there is an existing methodology that takes into consideration the differentiated and complementary voices of men and women when it comes to mainstreaming their voice, knowledge, and experience into the planning process. So that's a crucial piece of information, because whatever it is, the local development initiative design at the global level, we contextualize it to the public policies, local legislation, and to the existing platforms that are going to be supporting an inclusive development approach. When it comes to why do we have local in Mozambique? Well, we have serious climate conditions, and especially cyclones and typhoons, and we also have long periods of no rain at all in some of the provinces, in particular in the southern part of Mozambique. And we have, right at the beginning in 2014, we had an analysis of what are the most food insecure districts in Mozambique. So the most food insecure districts are the ones that are affected the most by extreme climate conditions. We are talking about droughts, we are talking about floods, and there is a direct causal correlation between food insecurity and extreme climate weather events. So that was very interesting because it facilitates extremely our life. That is why the government, together with the donor community, emphasized the need to have some kind of development finance that is going to be supporting adaptation at the very local level. So the case was built. I'm not entirely sure if you can see in the slide number 9 in my presentation. So this is basically some of the infrastructure that we are financing right at the beginning when we go to the government or when the donor community comes to us and asks, okay, what are you going to be financing in matters related to adaptation? I said, so there are basically 3 points here. First, and this is just building up of what Landing has presented here. UNCDF is a technical agency that is going to be supporting the implementation of the local development initiative through the government systems. That's the first point. Second, the prioritization of development finance and adaptive infrastructure is going to be carried out by the local governments and local communities themselves. And third, the finance associated to the initiative is going to be channeled through local government systems. And in the slide number 9, we can see what is the kind of an example of infrastructure that is going to be supporting community adaptation to climate change. What do we have normally? So if the question would be, okay, but what exactly are you financing? What are the most needed and prioritized by local governments and local communities development infrastructure for adaptation? Water related management infrastructure, that's right on the top. Resilient schools, because in some of the cyclones and typhoons, the wind takes the rooftop of the schools, and health centers. I mean, I particularly remember many health centers that we are financing in some of the districts, and because some of the communities do require or did require to walk like 40, 50 kilometers with extreme high temperatures to get medical attention. So in matters related to adaptation, health, education, and water management related infrastructure are right on the top of the priorities selected by the communities themselves. When we are talking about impacts, in order to get development impacts, it's important to get sustainability. So the donor community normally is requesting us, how are you going to ensure sustainability of your interventions? How are you going to ensure that beyond beyond the development support and financial resources of the donor community, the local development initiative is going to be sustaining its operation. First, there are 3 or 4 points that build the narrative of the local development initiative to the sustainability of our intervention. First, it is locally led development interventions. Local governments are going to be there beyond our current financial and technical support. Second, the capacities built up at the local government level are going to be there beyond the development finance support of the donor community and UNCDF. And third, the ownership of local communities by selecting and by prioritizing themselves the development infrastructure for adaptation, it's a precondition to ensure that communities are going to be taking well care of that particular infrastructure. And just to finalize, because I'm getting close to my 10 minutes time frame, local adaptation plans. So local adaptation plans, it's the decentralized planning tool that we are using as a proxy to facilitate the prioritization of adaptive development infrastructure. In the country, there are 153 deconcentrated governance structures, and there are approximately more than 54 municipalities which are devolved governance infrastructure. And out of these 200 decentralized governance structures, we are currently financing 25% of these governance structures. So there is still a long way to go to finance the totality of the governance structures that require finance for adaptation. So I'm just going to finalize here. Sarah, those are my 10 minutes presentation, very fast, of the contextualized local development initiative in Mozambique. Back to you, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Ramon. I think we've worn you out with questions. No, I think that's very important to hear, that it's really important to have commitment from donors. Mozambique has the highest rate of funding amongst all the local operational countries, and that is reflected in the results that are being delivered. You don't get results without investment of finance. The importance of ownership, I think, came through very clearly, not just at the community level, but right through all the government levels, local government and the various ministries that you have to work with if you're going to get everyone to come together and produce results that are meaningful and that will last. And I think it really came through also just how extreme the difficulties are that you're facing in Mozambique. 1 minute is floods, 1 minute it's drought. Mozambique is not an especially large country, but it's got a huge variety of stresses and problems that it's facing. It's very difficult for any country to manage, not least a country with limited resources in an environment that's changing very rapidly. So perhaps now it's good if we go over to Rosario. And Rosario works in the local government in Imambane province, which is in the southern part of Mozambique, if I'm correct, Feliciano. You might need to take there.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you, Ramon, Cedric, Landing.
Ask Cedric to move to your presentation, because I believe you've got a presentation.
Yes, please, Cedric, can you go to my presentation, please? Yeah.
Right, so let's just give him a moment to put that up on the screen. But I mean, you've all seen a lot of the news out of Mozambique these last few years. You have borne the brunt of some terrible weather events, climate-related weather events that are having a significant impact on communities. So I think looking at how we manage that and how you prepare for risk with your experience will be incredibly useful. Feliciano, I see we've got your presentation up on the screen now. Whenever you're ready, I'll hand the floor to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me here in this conference. Cedric, please, can we go to the first slide? Well, we are located about 600 kilometers away from the capital, Maputo. And Inhambane is one of the most affected province, being located to the coastal area. Cedric, the next slide, the second slide, please. Everybody can hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Cedric, are you able to hear? We still just seem to be seeing the first tile in the presentation.
So this is the third. The second one. Yes.
There we go.
That's it. Good. Thank you. So Mozambique, it's quite a wide country, as Ramon have said, Sarah. So Inhambane province particularly is one of the most affected province in those various cyclones, and as well as other kind of climate events. So we do face both, drought period, and as well as cyclones. This Sunday, Mozambique has been under the Freddy cyclone, which has been distracting a lot of infrastructures, private and public, from the roads, schools and health center and so on. Inhambane, particularly a week back, have as well being affected by this cyclone, which has been distracting a lot of infrastructures. But anyway, as you know, Mozambique, it's among the world, global countries, it's occupied 44th position in terms of vulnerability, and in the third place amongst African countries. So we have been affected by various of events, looking forward, 700 kilometers along the coastal area. We have a lot of floods, but as well in the interland, we have drought, which is sometimes 2-3 years without rains, so which causes a lot of human impacts. But as well, when it comes a lot of rain and floods, we have such a lot of water-related diseases. But as well, when it's a drought, there's as well drought-related diseases where we such as malaria and so on. If you look 15 years back, we've been hit with a lot. It's like every year, 1 or 2 different cyclones. Okay, like Dineo, which is what's the epicenter was Inhambane. We have Idai, and as well as Kennedy, which is in the north part of Inhambane, in the central side of Mozambique, in the north as well. And the other cyclones that followed after that, like Shalani, Guambe, and Gombe, so on. Those strange names, that always are behind those cyclones. And we are almost every year, at least 1 or 2 cyclones that hit our country. That made us, that causes a lot of problem in terms of increasing, the poverty, and that as well challenges in terms of the limited capacity of disaster risk reduction capacity, our adaptive infrastructures, the public service, limitation and so on. Next slide, Cedric. This is the context of climate changes in Mozambique. Cedric, please, next slide. The next slide, we'll see that if you compare since 1983, if I'm not wrong, if I'm not mistaken, up to 2006. In 20 years, was about 10 cyclones that have took place in our country. But from 2007 to today, which is about 16 years, is like a double of cyclones, but as well have doubled in terms of their intensity and as well in terms of the area coverage. Some years back, we used to say, okay, every 3-4 years it will appear a cyclone, but today it's like every year, twice and three. So it just means that there's a lot of cyclones going on in our countries, which is bring about all destruction. Cedric, the slide number 5, please. Hello, Cedric. I think he doesn't follow me. Okay, that's fine. I will continue as I was. So when it does appear, so it's caused a lot of destruction, like schools, health centers, and other kind of public infrastructures. And in our province, particularly, this has been happening like every year. So how local bring about assistance to those, bring about the changes to those kind of events that are almost happen every year. We work directly with, as Ramo was saying, at the national level. We work closely with the Minister of Finance, Economic and Finance, and as well with Land Environment. At the provincial level where I'm seated, we are working there with the provincial level, with the Provincial Service of Economy and Finance, but as well with the close collaboration with the Provincial Service of Environment, as well of Provincial Service of Infrastructures. But we do channel the funds directly to the local level, at the district level, where we do our planning, as Landing was saying, at our layer where we really do the proper planning. It's a district level, which is the third layer of the government of the government in Mozambique, where we bring about the local government, but as well the representative of the community called community council, okay, consultative council, where we use the local adaptation plan, and then we identify all the project that has been listed, and we work directly with local government as well, with the local consultative forum. We identify according to the representative community what is really its more priority at that certain time. Then we do finance those infrastructure. Mostly we fund the water sources. We do as well intervene into the health sectors, as well as schools, which has been more affected by those climate changes. And we trying to make sure that the inclusiveness of the process is there, bring about all participants, a group of women, group of youths, the local leaders, as well as civil society participating in the process of identifying the higher priority, the priority projects. Then every year we do fund this project. But as well, above this, we do as well trying to the capacity building of the local government. We do every year the exercise called it, we call it the performance evaluation, where we're trying to bring about all the capacity of the government, for accountability, to follow all the procedures. And the UNCDF did not bring us about, procedures of UNCDF, but we make sure that the local government should follow the Mozambique, legislation in terms of transparency, inclusiveness, accountability, and so on. The district that it's more accomplished those kind of process, we like, rewarding in terms of a little bit more allocation than the others, and so on, based on population and so on. And the last slide, we talk about so what we do from now on. As you know, Mozambique, it's quite a large country. We are working in average around, in my province, we are now in about 10 districts, which is province with 14 districts. But in the other districts as well, other provinces as well, we still have a lot of districts that are facing the same problem that we do. So we have to continue strengthening this community resilience through, a small infrastructure construction. We have to continue covering more areas, more provinces. UNCDF in Mozambique, beside my province as well, is covering another 5 provinces, but as well, not all districts. And there are more districts, really looking forward to have this program within their district. The local initiative, it's to bring about very big changes in terms of developing, the local infrastructure that they bring about changes in terms of life and the resilience to the local people. So we're looking forward to expand, the local initiative in all Mozambique. So as well, we try to bring about all, the renewable energy, initiative that come with all infrastructure. We don't use other kind of sources of energy. We use renewable energy. And then we as well trying to identify other kind of intervention that are being implemented within the same area that we do, so that we do the complementarity, so to maximize our effort within the local level. So this is our experience in Mozambique, particularly in Inhambane province where I'm based. And we are very much looking forward to have our province first full covered by local initiative, but as well other provinces to be covered by this initiative, because it's really bringing some changes and help people to develop themselves within their district. As you know, in Mozambique, particularly the local initiative have been managed by the local government. And this is very, very important for us, because it's different from the other initiative where they are full managed by the outsider, but this one is full managed by the local government. And that, besides bringing infrastructure, but as well as bringing about a capacity building within the government authority. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rosario. And I think that really brought home the message that we also heard from the Gambia, the importance of ownership, country ownership, building capacity at the local level and doing it yourselves. I mean, this for the long-term resilience of your systems and the results that you're delivering, it appears to make sense, right? I just wondered if perhaps Ramon and Rosario could tell us a little bit more about how you take into account these perhaps unforeseen risks that you're facing in Mozambique. You do seem to had a very torrid history recently with cyclones, drought, extreme weather events. If you're investing in small-scale infrastructure projects that are community-led, how do you ensure that those projects are going to withstand these kind of shocks? I mean, what information do you gather and what measures are being taken? I don't know who might like to.
Please,
Ramon,
Rosario.
go. Rosario?
Yes, as you said, every cyclone is different from the other. If you look for Dineo, for example, in 2017 was about 170, 180 speed per hour. And then 2 years after, 1 year after, in 2018, we have Idai, who was about 280 kilometer speed per hour. So you can try to bring about new technology that create the capacity of your infrastructure to resist that kind of up to certain speed. But then comes a new cycle which is different from the other, that probably your infrastructure will not be resistant from it. But above that, what we do, We work closely with the government and the government institution for disaster, reduction authority. Make sure that the people are prepared for unforeseen events. There are local committee that are equipped, with communication, particularly communication tools that when it's envisaged, the occurrence of kind of event, they might, spread the message to the people so that there will be people will be out from the affected area. If you compare, for example, in 2000, we have floods and as well as a cyclone was about 120 kilometers, and we lost more than 700 people in one area. But today we have been affected with 280 kilometer speed, event, and we lost about 50, 60, 100 people, that was because of the communication, the committee that has been created within the community level that once it's envisioned sort of kind of a cyclone, they spread, the message to make sure that people they live and most of the people today they do easily, accept on that. On the infrastructure area as well as we're looking into we're trying to bring about the planning sector of the government at local level. We're trying to bring a capacity building for we call district technical team that they should understand, study, and be exposed with the information on what kind of climate event that are most happen in their area. So when they do the development planning, the infrastructure planning, the agriculture planning, and all kind of health and so on, they should revisit what kind of climate event that most occur so that their activity should be adapted to those climate events that most occur in their village. So after the event, rapidly will bring about all activity that they will rescue rapidly their community so that it will reduce a time of suffering of the people. Ramon, if you want to increase.
Yeah, no, I think that's important to say that you're building awareness so that people are ready to respond, and also not just how to respond, but so they can respond more quickly when you can see these things coming. But I also know that some of the infrastructure that has been developed with the local funds have now withstood several rounds of events. Perhaps you could tell us a bit more about that, Ramon.
Thank you, Sarah. So basically, there are institutional checks and balance that within the local development initiative, we have a structure to ensure that climate events are not going to be affecting the quality of the infrastructure. First of all, the first point, all infrastructure, all the construction works of the infrastructure are going to be having a person who is going to first fiscalize the quality of the infrastructure, the quality of the equipment, and the inputs required to build the infrastructure, the adaptive development infrastructure. That's the first point. The second is that within the decentralized technical assistance that we are financing through the local development initiative, we have architects, civil engineers that are going to be ensuring that the quality of the infrastructure development for adaptation is ensured. So here we have two persons at the very least that are supervising the quality of the material for the infrastructure. And the third and most important probably is the existing capacities that we can find within the technical district teams, the technical capabilities within the local governments in itself. We have the district service of planning infrastructure. They have architects, civil engineers that are supporting these two institutional checks and balance that we ensure through the initiative. So basically, it's a matter of using existing technical capabilities within the local governments, ensuring that there are programmatic technical checks and balance within the team, civil engineers and architects, and that we do follow the guidelines with regards to the construction and build up of infrastructure for adaptation. So basically, it's quite straightforward. As soon as you identify the potential setbacks and the potentialities of the development initiative that is going to be financing the infrastructure. So as you rightly pointed out, Sarah, we have had cyclones and typhoons and extreme climate events, and our infrastructure have stayed the ground. And this is one of the development indicators that we are having a good technical competence within the local governments that are planning, financing, and procuring the materials for the adaptive development infrastructure. So basically, that is the checks and balance that we have structured within the initiative. Back to you, Sarah.
Great. Thank you very much. I think that gives a really good overview of what's being achieved in Mozambique. And we've already heard from colleagues in the Gambia. I don't know if we have any questions that from our audience, from the participants here today. Do feel free to put questions into the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, you can put a question to any of the panel here directly. Is there anything that anyone would like to put to the panel? I'll just give it a couple of minutes. Anyone in there? Please, I'll ask our support team from ICAD, if you're seeing anyone who's wanting to raise a question, do let me know. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't see any questions from the audience at the moment. Perhaps just one question from me then, perhaps, and that's more about what next. Both Gambia and Mozambique has been quite well established over a number of years with the local facility. Nania, I don't know, are you still able to hear us, and are you able to connect there? Because it would be great to hear a bit more. I know that the JSF program, which has been implementing Local in the Gambia these last 4 years, is coming to a close. But that's not the end for Local in the Gambia, is it? There are future plans, and perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about what might be coming next in the Gambia.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, there's going to be continuation and scaling up of the local mechanism in the Gambia to cover the entire country, because the implementation is done at the ward level. And the pilot, which happened through the JSF, only covered 32 wards. The government of Gambia has taken ownership to make sure that the local mechanism is scaled up to the remaining 90 wards in the Gambia. So there are plans put in place, which the results mobilization has been led by the government to continue and scale up the mechanism in the country over the next years. So in the next 4 years, we're looking at covering another 16 or more wards through funding from the Adaptation Fund, and as well as government contribution from the government budget using the government local revenues. So I think that's strong commitment and ownership from the government. And that is because the mechanism works. It works perfectly well within the country's systems. It works for the people because investments are done for the people. And it's helping also the country lead the way when it comes to climate and meeting its NDC, the National Determined Contribution. As you know, Gambia is one, or if not the only country that has met its NDC. And the utilization of the mechanism is one of the main reasons that also support help get there. So yes, we're going to be with here to scale up the program to cover all 122 wards in the Gambia. And by that time, hopefully capacity would have been built, structures would have been amended within the decentralization structure for the government to continue once we cover the entire country. So it doesn't have to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Nania, maybe I'll just keep you on because I can see that Vincent has got his hand raised, but before we move to you, Vincent, perhaps I can just put this question to Nania from Jesper Stephenson. He's wanting a bit of a clarification. He says, in the Gambia, there is significant focus on the ward level, but he'd like to know which institutional level is assessed in terms of performance, and how is there a link?
I mean, the execution, yes, is at ward level because that's where the grants go. And the assessment is done where the grants go. But we do work closely with at the central level, and we also work with public institutions like the National Audit Office. They do the auditing and check that implementation done by the ward is done in line with the procurement policies of the Gambia, and the money is spent where in line with the plans. We also work with the Gambia Public Procurement Agency. So we do work with different sort of public institutions at the micro level. And at the macro level, we work with the central government, Minister of Local Government, Minister of Finance, Minister of Environment. And at the meso level, we work with the wards. This is in line with the mechanism standard. And what we're looking at, we're looking at as a country, how do we involve CSOs, civil society organizations, or NGOs that can help probably, undertake some of the responsibilities in line with the mechanism standard.
Great.
Thanks. I hope that answers that question.
I think so. I'm sure Jefferson can come in with if he has any more clarifications he's wanting. I'll just hand the floor now, perhaps though, to Vincent. Vincent, I see you've got your hand raised there. Great, you can get your microphone off. Please go ahead.
I've got my microphone off now. Thank you very much indeed. Great. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks to everybody for presenting. It's been really interesting. Just to put in perspective, I'm with the UK FCDO. I'm the lead in the FCDO for support to the Life AR programme, which I see essentially as a sister and sort of complementary initiative to Locale. And I was particularly interested to hear from colleagues in the Gambia. I was in Senegal 2 weeks ago and met various colleagues who came up from the Gambia, including some that your colleagues might know, Alpha Jello and others who represent sort of the government of the Gambia and its relationship with both initiatives, I think. What I think we'd really like to understand is how we perceive that these two initiatives can work successfully alongside each other, with the ultimate decision on selection of sort of preferred initiative in country resting, of course, with the government of that country and not be prescribed by either the United Nations or the UK government. So I would really like to get perspective from the Gambia on how they see sort of the building upon what Locale has been doing for a number of years, how they see Life AR merging, well, not necessarily merging with that, or working alongside them and having sort of complementary approaches that we don't tread on each other's toes. Perhaps I could sort of turn to your colleagues in the Gambia who could talk a little bit about that. Thanks, Sarah.
Nania, is that something that you're able to
Sure.
Sure.
Sure. Thank you so much, Vincent, for that. And yes, Alpha was there, Boubacar Jallo was there. We've put in structures in place that really guides the implementation of the Locale. We have the technical steering committee, which is cross multi-sectoral. amongst different ministries. We also have the National Steering Committee. So these structures are the technical and the governance structure that supports the implementation of the mechanism. UNCDF, as the host of the mechanism, just provides the technical assistance support. So this, I think, is very important in driving sort of ownership and impact. And yes, to answer your question specifically, just this morning, I've received a call from a consultant that is doing work on Life AR to interview me and talk to me and see how these initiatives can work together in synergy and can coexist in a consolidated manner for the country. And I'll be talking to this person later today, 5 p.m. But what we are doing, I mean, when the Life AR strategy was just approved and launched at the LDC group of UNFCCC, the country realized that the local mechanism addresses what the strategy aims, the vision and the mission of the strategy. And what the country, as at the last time I spoke to the Minister of Environment that contacted me, was how can consolidation happen? How can the countries work on both initiatives? By the way, because local also was adopted in the COP27 as a long-term initiative for the LDC group. And we'll be meeting to discuss that. But one thing that came to mind was local channels down the fund using government intergovernment transfer. Life AR can look at funding CSOs or the private sector or other stakeholders in this climate sort of action field or landscape. But yes, we are working closely with the government of the Gambia through the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and National Resources. And hopefully, Gambia, I was told, is one of the pilot countries to implement Life AR. And that can be accelerated using the structures that are already in place and owned by the government. So I am looking forward to that discussion, and I believe the Life AR focal point of contact, Vincent, will get back to the FCDO with the way forward on Gambia. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Nania. And just something else that came up in the chat. I mean, I think one of the strengths that Local does illustrate is that it keeps costs very low because we're using local government systems and existing in-country systems to channel finance to communities when it's not a separate project or add-on program activity. So it's a way of making sure that finance actually is channeled through the existing intergovernmental transfer systems and the grants reach the local governments themselves. If there's anything else that Ramon, you wanted to add, as we gave Nania some time, is there anything that you can come in here with?
With regards to the question of Life AR, I'm not entirely sure of the particularities of Life AR, but I understood that there are extremely similar entry points that we could build our synergies and complement them. But without knowing in detail what is it about Life AR, I would say that as the local governments are the ones that are taking the lead in the planning, budgeting, and financing of adaptation. The local governments are the ones that are managing, implementing, and being accountable of the financial resources for adaptation. As far as Life AR interacts with local governments, supports local governments, and take into consideration the local government systems, planning and budgeting tools, and national public policies with regards to financing adaptation, it's going to be quite a straightforward synergies between the two initiatives, because local is an initiative supported by UNCDF, but is implemented by the government of Mozambique. So as far as Life AR gives the the role and responsibility and the mandate to the government of Mozambique, or the government of Gambia through the local governments, the synergies and complementarities are just going to come into pieces quite easily. So that's basically what I could be suggesting or building up on Niana's comments. So back to you, Sarah. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Ramon. I think we're coming to the close of the session. Vincent, please, of course, stay in touch. If you have any further questions, I can drop my chat, I can drop my email in the chat before the event closes. Do feel free to get in touch. And perhaps it just leaves me to say thank you very much to all our speakers today. We do have a couple of minutes left, so perhaps I can ask Madiha if she would be as kind as to play that closing video just to finish off today's session. And we can just have a look at some more of the impacts that we're seeing from some of the communities. Thanks very much for everyone for joining today. Madiha, over to you.
Fatsise is part of a global community, and so is Nat Mane, and Doris Quada, and Jasmine Muslim. Across the world, millions of people are taking action and adapting to the impacts of climate change using the Local Climate Adaptive Living Facility, or LOCAL. In countries where climate change is already having devastating impacts, they know there is no time to waste. Communities that work together can achieve lasting results with LOCAL. Roads, bridges, flood protection, land regeneration, often using local labour, building on local knowledge, and incorporating nature-based solutions. LOCAL works for people, for communities, and for countries across the globe. Over 30 countries are implementing or designing climate change adaptation actions using LOCAL, sharing knowledge that spans nations for maximum global impact through local level action. An international finance mechanism, LOCAL channels finance to communities through their local government authorities, building capacity of country systems. Consultations ensure that communities' needs are heard and acted on. With over 10 years of experience working hand in hand with hundreds of local government authorities and millions of beneficiaries, LOCAL demonstrates that finance for effective adaptation action can be delivered, that results are achievable and scalable, that by working together we can meet our common goal. LOCAL, financing locally led adaptation.
Thanks very much. I think that was a nice way to close. Sarah and the team have been asking, hi there, Sarah, lovely to see you. For us to switch on our cameras, everyone, if you don't mind, so we could take a group photo of everyone who's left on the call. Nani, are you able to briefly? I know you have very bad connection issues there in Gambia.
Yeah, Sarah, what did you say?
Are you able to switch on your camera even briefly, just for a group photo?
Oh, no. No, I wasn't able to do that.
Shame. Okay, well, I think we've got everyone who's going to be able to switch on their camera here, Sarah.
Okay, let me try. I hope I won't get disconnected.
Give it a try.
Yeah, how lovely to see you.
Now.
Okay.
Vincent, Madiha. If not, we can just take the picture. Okay, it's done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.